It's rapidly growing. Here you see all the companies that are involved right now. I think it's a nice mix between startups, scale-ups, and also corporates. So very recently, parties like Danone and also others joined. I think we have a representative from Danone also joining this webinar. So it's great also not just to see Dutch companies involved, but also international companies such as from Germany, like Bold Foods, and also tomorrow we'll have some discussions with some other German companies. So it's quite easy to say that there is an obvious relation between the Netherlands and Germany in our joint efforts to solve the protein puzzle, as I sometimes call it. So I'm very pleased that that again we can seek the cooperation between our two countries and creating some good impact and also business from plant proteins. I think you already mentioned it, Joachim, you mentioned the example of kebab from Evolution Meats, and this is just one of the obvious connections we can make between the two countries. I was very much impressed with also the actions of the German Lidl supermarkets, also expressing their interest and promotion also for Vegan Wednesday with kebab, and also German companies like Chihuahua are also now really entering the market with gyros and kebab-like products. So it's obvious that there's a lot of choice now for not just the German, but also the Dutch consumer in this respect. So I've been asked to share with you some recent developments in the Dutch protein shift ecosystem, and also share some suggestions with you on how to further strengthen the Dutch-German connection in this fascinating field. So only last week, a Dutch producer of meat analogues was, 2 weeks ago, a Dutch producer of meat analogues called Bobeldijk was acquired by a fish producing company, which seems quite awkward, but you see more and more often that the conventional animal protein industry is now more heavily getting involved in plant proteins, and we see those kinds of mergers and acquisitions all over the world and also in the Netherlands. So this is one very recent example, and the reason why I also choose this is that, have a look at this package. Watch. Okay. And now all of a sudden it's in German. You may recognize it. So all these great products from VegaFit, I think quite successful in Germany, they are actually manufactured in the Netherlands. So again, very great example of the Dutch-German connection, in this case with the company of Bobeldijk, so recently acquired also by Animal Fish Group. Then we also see a centralization, you may say, in the area of plant protein related research and development. One recent example is the announcement of Upfield. They call themselves the biggest plant protein company, the biggest plant food company of the world, have announced that they will centralize their R&D also to Wageningen, the heart of Food Valley. And also interesting in this respect is that Upfield, not so much with this particular product, but also in other products, they're heavily focusing also on other plant protein sources, for example, the faba bean. So they recently also launched some very great cooking creams, fully plant-based, based on faba beans. And we may just come back to that later as well. So, but with all we are experiencing right now, how does that lead to any mutations in the selling behavior, the buying behavior, of the Dutch consumer? So what you see here are the most up-to-date numbers that I have of sales in the Dutch retailer, excluding hard discount, for some relevant categories. And you see here, for example, that meat substitutes, again, despite the heavy raise also in previous years, in the first quarter of 2020 compared to the first quarter of 2019, have risen with more than 30%. And this includes the start of the whole corona-related issues that we experience. And that holds for other relevant plant protein categories as well. And as you see here, also in the meat and dairy sector, you see that the sales have risen, which is obviously quite logical because many people are nowadays buying their proteins more than before in the retail. But you see that the percentages obviously greatly vary. However, we have to be honest in the sense that when you then look at the actual volumes, so this is the increase in volume, millions of kilograms sold, you see that 1 million kilograms of meat analogs were more sold in the first quarter of 2020 compared to 2019, whereas the meat sales have risen with about 2 million kilograms. So in volume, we still have an imbalance. You see, however, that the protein transition is indeed an acceleration in terms of also the relative percentages. Dairy, obviously, in volume is so much bigger because it's most of it's liquid milk. So yeah, we are in a totally crazy period, and we see that nothing will be the same as we have known it for so many years before. I think we can also see it for the good. We see already, this is a message, sorry in Dutch, but the FAO published it yesterday, that they expect that the total meat use will decrease with 3% globally by the end of this year, and there are more such expectations. So I see it also as a good sign that the rebalancing of all our proteins, of our protein system, is full speed ahead. Then making the connection with what's happening on a political scale also in the Netherlands. So there's actually a Dutch protein strategy now being under construction. We already see that there is quite an ecosystem in the Netherlands forming around this whole plant protein movement. All kinds of organizations also clustering on various sides of the chain. For example, Growing Green Proteins is an initiative from one province in Flevoland, focusing on growing protein-rich crops, whereas the protein cluster is somewhat in the middle, so enhancing and creating value from plant proteins. And the Green Protein Alliance is an organization really focusing on changing behavior on the consumer side. Now this Dutch protein strategy, which is now top of mind of our Ministry of Agriculture, Mrs. Carola Schouten. She has been asked actually by the European Union, what is the Netherlands going to do to make the European Union more self-sufficient in terms of plant protein, and especially a higher quality and higher content plant protein sources. As you see here, only 26% of the oilseed meals that we use in the European Union is actually coming from the European Union. So there is a high independency from outside the EU, and for obvious reasons we want to decrease that. So these are the 3 points at this moment that our Dutch Minister of Agriculture is intending to focus on. It's on the production and cultivation of protein-rich crops, which are not only crops which can be land-grown, but also aquatic protein crops like algae or seaweed or even water lentils, duckweed. Second one is the development of innovative protein sources, which are not yet commonly used. You may also think of cultured meat, cultured fish. And the third one is protein production by means of side stream valorization, which has all to do with also the circular ag food ambitions that the Netherlands have. You may notice that these are quite primary production focused. So we think that it is very necessary also to think more upscale, upstream the chain, also creating value towards consumer products. Because we also have to be honest, these are some numbers showing the numbers of acres that are now covered in the Netherlands with protein-rich land crops, so alfalfa, faba, soy, pea, and lupin. and this covers until 2018. So it's a mere 7,500, let's say 8,000 acres. The bigger part of which is alfalfa, also used for feed purposes. And only this morning, last week I was informed that for 2020, the number of acres of soy that has been planted has dropped to 140 acres, 140, which is basically nothing. And it all has to do with the fact that in the Netherlands, the climate conditions are still such that the variations in yield are too big for growers also to really build a business case upon. And the same holds for industrial parties also interested in purchasing the products. On the other hand, and this picture on the left here, the big picture, was taken this morning in the rainy Holland. We just discussed that it's not so nice for all those people already enjoying a holiday, but it's very good for soy. But this is not ordinary soy. This is edamame. These are the fresh green soybeans, which are now growing very rapidly in the Netherlands under the brand of Dutch edamame. This type of soy can be harvested earlier. Yields are higher. Products can be consumed with less processing. So it is my full belief that protein-rich crops will be grown, still be grown in the Netherlands, and also soy, but more aiming also for these kinds of fresh soy / edamame purposes. So now, 3 opportunities that I see for Germany and the Netherlands to cooperate and solve protein puzzle. So the first one is quite obvious, I think. It is we really need each other to bridge the plant protein gap in terms of sourcing, in terms of making sure that all the right plant proteins are not only produced but also delivered on an industrial quality also for the market to meet the fast-growing demand on the consumer side for plant protein products. If it is for meat substitute, fish substitutes, or beyond dairy or non-dairy products, we really need to cooperate more powerful on that, because as said, in the Netherlands, we do have some growing activity, but it is very limited, especially also if you compare it to, for example, Germany, where I think in 2019, some 59,000 tons of protein, of soy protein was produced. So we can really help each other there. A second suggestion that I have is also to facilitate all the companies that are active or are intending to become active in this area of plant proteins, and especially those also seeking facilities to either produce ingredients, semi-finished products, or consumer-ready products. So what we have done in the Netherlands, we've created this Food Value Protein Facility Map, mapping all the places in the Netherlands where companies can find equipment, infrastructure that is available for plant protein processing in whatever kind. And but we have to be so honest that at this moment capacity is really a problem, and also availability. So it is very logical to me to also look outside the Netherlands. So I would really call for some action also in Germany to cooperate with us, and to also map facilities that are present in Germany, or at least in a part of Germany close to the Netherlands, that would be available and would also help also Dutch producers in producing meat analogs, fish analogs, specific ingredients that maybe at companies may also be at research institutes like Fraunhofer or Dill. So that would be my second suggestion. And my third one is, let's keep on turning a serious business, as I always call this, into serious business. Just as this man also shows and proves. This is Timo Rekker. I met him some 11 years ago. I remember I was very happy at the time that he bought some of my products that I produced at the time. And and again, we see here the Dutch connection, because the products of Like Meat, I think not all, but many of them are still produced in the Netherlands, in Os. So we really are co-profiting also from this plant protein revolution in the Netherlands and in Germany. So let's keep on strengthening our cooperation in that respect, and also be inspired by people like Timo Rekker, and perhaps also the value that that the Netherlands can have there. To conclude, I would like to invite you already to the online Food Valley Summit that will be held this year on October 13th and 14th. The protein shift theme will be on the program on October 13th. More information to follow on foodvalley.nl. Thank you so much for your attention. Close to 10 minutes, I hope. Thank you, Jochem. I'll give it back to you, and I'm open to answer some questions if we have some time.
Thank you very, very much, Jeroen. It's a pity that you don't have a real stage to present, but you have your home stage at this moment. I think it's also very interesting to listen to your suggestions for the 3 points of collaboration between Germany and Holland. Very clear pointed out. I think that we also put it in the national strategy to try to work more together with Germany in the Nationale Eiwittransitie. Can you say something about this? We just ended this consultant with 150 stakeholders, and now the next step, how do we get a final Dutch strategy?
Yeah, so really, you're right. So more than 1,000 people participated in the Dutch stakeholders consultant process, and the final report has been handed to the Dutch Minister of Agriculture, Mrs. Schouten. For those who are interested, it is available, I think, on the website that I mentioned in my presentation. And now, really, it is expected that Mr. Schouten will suggest activities and focus in October, and perhaps she will even also do so during our October summit. We're not sure yet, but she will find a relevant and an appropriate platform to send out her advice, which is not more than an advice. You have to know that there are going to be elections in the Netherlands next year, so it is a suggestion and advice also to the political parties in the Netherlands on where to focus on. To be honest, I'm quite sure that it will take some more time, and that the actual execution of the activities will start only next year. And the only thing we can do, or I think it's our obligation for people like you, Jochem, and perhaps also myself, is to keep on hammering on the connection also to be made with other European countries, because this is a European challenge or a European question that has been asked us. So we can only solve that also in a European cooperation. So with respect to sourcing, for example, as said, I think that's quite an obvious connection that we need to make there. So let's keep on addressing that where we can, also towards our Dutch minister.
No, thank you very much, Jeroen. It's a nice last word. So let me switch in this case to Berlin, in Europe, and ask our Albrecht Wolfmeier for his presentation to explain a little more about Provage, about his work. Last year, we visited you in the Incubator program at your head office in Berlin, in occasion to the New Food Conference. So we met in person. Very nice that you can join us here in this online seminar. So the screen is yours. Please explain what's happening in Germany at this moment. Thank you very much, Albrecht.
Thank you, Joachim. Thank you, Jeroen. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Well, it's cool that we're having this bi-national and multilingual session together, and I'll try to enlighten a little bit what's happening in Germany with different topics. I will show you in a bit here. Just a second. Here we go. So I was asked by Joachim to talk about the plant protein strategy, which is actually not a topic we are super familiar with here at Provage. I will explain a little bit more in detail why, but I did my best, and I came up with an overview that could be of interest to you, and we'll also cover 2 other topics. So this looks like this as an agenda. So there's lots of things we can discuss, and we can also follow up on. If you're interested, get in touch and reach out to me, and also to my colleagues here in Germany and in other countries, for example, in the Netherlands as well, where we have a Provage chapter. That is, in fact, the first thing I would like to talk about is Provage International, and our incubator program, our incubator here in Germany. The second thing is then the German protein plant strategy we just mentioned, like the monologue to what's happening in the Netherlands, the strategy that the government has put in place a couple of years ago, and then I will talk about something a bit different, but it's also about plant-based and about proteins. Of course, it's about a survey that Provage just published, a European survey on consumer trends in the plant-based field, and it also covers data and covers trends in the Netherlands and in Germany. So I thought this would be a good occasion to bring this up and to let you know a little bit more about what we found out in that study. So the first thing is, what is Provage and what is the Provage incubator? Joachim and Jeroen know it, Floor as well. Some other attendants may not know so much about it. Our mission as an NGO, we are a food awareness organization that is quite young. We were founded in 2017 here in Germany, but it goes back a very long time to the so-called WEBU, Vegetarierbund Deutschland, that was founded at the end of the 19th century. So there's a history of more than 100 years. But now as an international NGO, this is a completely different thing. And why? Because the founders thought that food and problems and solutions related to food are not stopping at our borders, and they are related to so many things in our lives, in our economies, that this has to be that you have to have a global approach. And to tackle the mission that we have, which is to reduce the global consumption of animals by 50% by the year 2040, you cannot just work in one country or in one continent. In fact, the vision then that goes with that mission is a world where everyone chooses delicious and healthy food, delicious, healthy at the same time. And it has to be good for everybody, for all humans, for all animals, and for the planet. So we're speaking about environmental issues here as well. Provage has a couple of chapters in different countries on 4 continents, for example, in South Africa and China as well. And as I said, in Europe, we are based in Spain, Netherlands, Poland, UK, and here in Germany, where is our headquarters and where also the Provage incubator is located. We have around 150 people working with Provage in these different countries, most of them actually here in Germany. So how do we tackle this problem, and how do we define food awareness? So we say there's 5 reasons to be pro-veg. It's not only about animals, which you could think that's an animal welfare organization. We're not. We think that food is related to so many problems that you have to think it at least 5-fold or more. So there's health issues. 30%, for example, of health costs for chronic diseases in Germany are diet related, and there's numerous studies that show that a mostly plant-based diet is much more healthy and doesn't lead to these chronic diseases as much and as often as a heavily plant-based animal-based nutrition. But think of the animals as well. Pro animals is why, because there's around 75 billion land animals alone are slaughtered every year, 75 billion per year. And this doesn't include any fish or so-called unproductive hens that are killed in the egg production, for example. Think about the environment. 15%, around 15%, according to FAO, of greenhouse gas emissions that are induced by human activity come from animal agriculture. And think of justice as well. If you have like 10 billion people in a few decades living in this world, it will be really hard. And that's why we have this protein discussion. It will be really hard to stick to the same industry, the same system we are having right now to ensure a fair distribution of nutrition and of protein, in fact. And last but not least, think about taste. That's why we think that the pro-taste aspect is just as important. If you come up with delicious food like the VegaFit products, for example, then you can convince mass markets, then you can convince average consumers to switch and to try and maybe to stick with plant-based alternatives to animal-based food. That's why we do it 5 ways, and that's why we have 5 reasons. We do many things at Provage. We have a food industry and retail department that does consulting projects with corporations on a national and international level, as Joachim knows very well. We have a test community of more than 20,000 people that can test new products or also give feedback on packaging and so on. We work with food service, out-of-home market. We work with school canteens. We have a V label. It's very well known in Europe. The V label is this yellow little sign on products to make sure for consumers that this is a vegan or a vegetarian product. And if there's no corona, we are present at many fairs and events. And for example, we're also a co-initiator of the Veggie World, the biggest fair on vegan and vegetarian products and the veggie lifestyle. I'll talk about the incubator in a bit in more detail. What else are we doing? Like many NGOs, we work with the media, we do political work, we do trainings for activists. But what's more important here maybe is that we also do conferences that focus entirely on medical aspects of your nutrition. The VegMed here in collaboration with the Charité Hospital in Berlin, for example. And we have a backbone organization called 50 by 40, according to our mission, where we bring together all kinds of NGOs that are working in the same direction, that might be something like Greenpeace as well, but that align with us to support that 50 by 40 mission to reduce the consumption of animal products by the year 2040 by 50%. Now to talk about the incubator, what do we offer to startups? We have startups from all over the world that join us here in Berlin and that join us online now during this time to get in touch with the experts we know, with the mentors we have, to participate in workshops on marketing, branding, on funding, on pitching and so on. They do trainings in these things. They join a community which is quite unique because it's not only about food startups. It's also a community that has this mission as a common ground that is quite unique. So, and it's a lifelong community. We say we don't stop when the program ends. We have this co-working space that Joachim and the delegation visited when they were here in Berlin, a co-working space that is not as much used at the moment as it could be by startups, but we're getting back to normal every day a little bit more. So hopefully this will be possible quite soon. And we do a lot of marketing and PR for startups as well. So we try to get them visibility on media platforms like Food Navigator or Veg Economist, in fact. What have we done so far? 40 startups, 20 countries, many partners in other countries, in Germany, in the US, in the Netherlands. And that support that goes on as long as a startup needs it or as long as it takes to make it a scale-up or a corporation, hopefully. So now about the German protein plant strategy, something completely different. No, it's of course connected, but this is a government strategy, a government program. So to sum it up and to wrap it up, I will give you some information what this is about. It's initiated by the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. This happened almost 8 years ago. There is a strategy office in the Federal Agency for Agriculture and Food that runs the whole thing. And it has 3 aims. It has to support legume cultivation with 6 million euros per year. It helps research and development in that area. We're speaking about soy and pea and beans and clover and so on, proteins. and it shall facilitate the dialogue between stakeholders in that field. The government, the German ministry, has defined a couple of proteins that that the protein plants bring. As I said, a nutritious diet, high protein content, that is one thing that we are all familiar with, but also soil fertility is a benefit, less carbon emissions, lower risk of resistance against fertilizers. Biodiversity is a huge European topic, and a couple of more things. So the aims and objectives of that plant protein protein plant strategy is to promote legume cultivation in Germany, to also increase the demand and the offer for those domestic legumes. Then there's environmental issues and the fertilizer I just mentioned. And it's all about regional, which could also apply to Germany and the Netherlands, regional value chains. Yeah, and it's all about protein supply as well. So this is just is very broad. Where does the money come from? It comes from the EU, both pillars of the CAP. It goes for conventional and organic farming, and there's certain requirements like 10% legumes per farmland. A couple of initiatives that have happened so far, which I will look over now, and just as a wrap up, so far the government has spent like I think from 2014 to 17, 19 million euros, and since then 6 million euro per year for that initiative. So I would say it's rather low profile until now, and it seems like the Dutch strategy is a bit more advanced. But I must say that I'm not an expert on this, and maybe there's more happening. So if we look into this more in detail, we will see how the projects look like that have been started. We know that for lupins, for example, there have been like 50 operations, for clovers 60, and soy 50. So in that size of scope, that's the scope of those of the impact so far. Yes. So since I have a mix of topics and I still hopefully have like a few minutes for that, I would like to share some results of our European consumer study on plant-based foods and have some results from the Netherlands and Germany. We asked more than 6,000 consumers what they are missing in their supermarkets when it comes to plant-based, how satisfied they are with the products that you find, and what they would be looking for to find in supermarkets, these things. And if you look at, this is just a spotlight, if you look at the Netherlands, the top 6 most wanted product categories is actually, the first one is plant-based cheese. And the thing with plant-based cheese as one very common product is that it's the same for Germany as well. If you look at Germany, plant-based cheese is very much in demand, very high in demand, but consumers are not very much satisfied with the quality they get. So texture, taste, appearance, and everything is not there yet. So there's there's lots of room for improvement for plant-based cheese. Other categories that are high in demand in the Netherlands, second place is baked goods. Ready meals third, and plant-based meat is fourth. In Germany, it's a bit different. Baked goods, chocolates as well, and second. Then there's ice cream, and then there's plant-based meat alternatives. Here you can see that over 8 out of 10 respondents in the Netherlands had purchased plant-based milk recently. So we just learned, and this is not a surprise, that plant-based milk is really a mainstream product. This is the first product that people usually tend to buy and to stick to when they try plant-based products. In Germany, it's even higher. It's 9 out of 10 respondents. And then there's also a spotlight on supermarkets. So people were asked where they shop for plant-based products. You can see there's a comparison of the major supermarkets in the Netherlands, and also about the satisfaction rate. And we did the same for German supermarkets. Why am I telling you this? Because you can download the European survey on this if you're interested. This is interested for Dutch and for German, for the German side as well, of course, and for a couple of other countries. 9 countries in Europe were covered by this survey. And you can also acquire specific country reports on Germany, for example, and on the Netherlands. This is me. I'm running the Provage Incubator here in Germany. As I said, a very international outlet. So we're based in Germany, but our startups come from all over the world. And some of them also come from the Netherlands. The first one we just onboarded this year was Meet Jack, a startup working on jackfruit products. And we're getting more interest and more applications from the Netherlands. So we're happy to see that, and hopefully that this will increase. This is what I wanted say about collaboration. Yes, Food Valley and Provage should be working more closely together, and of course the governments on their protein plan strategies, but also the new food conference that couldn't take place this year is a thing to look out for next year. We're going to run a series of webinars in August to make up for the loss of the cancellation of the new food conference due to COVID-19. And last but not least, apart from the startups that exchange ways here, exchange their experiences here between the Netherlands and Germany. There's also a chapter, of course, of Provage in the Netherlands that you can reach out to if you have specific questions or ideas for collaboration with us on a national or bi-national level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Albrecht. Very interesting to see. And also in comparison between the Netherlands and Germany, I saw that this European study was just finished and very actual, very recent, and it can be downloaded on your website, you said, eh?
Yes, it can be downloaded on our website for free. It's a long, like a detailed report about the results in the overall results of all countries. Lots of data on the specific countries as well. And if you're interested to purchase the country reports, so this is a little promotion slot, you can get in touch and we can provide that as well for the Netherlands and for Germany, or for the UK or other countries you may be interested in.
Okay. Probably we will send the link within the email with all the presentation.
Yeah, it's on provage.com. You'll find it easily. Yeah.
But it's my interest that you told me that the German government invests 6 million euros a year in the protein strategy. Is that in comparison to Holland? Do you know if? I don't know what the amount is in Holland. Jeroen, do you know something about that?
The Dutch Minister Schouten has made an overview of what is invested in recent years, also on this topic. It adds up to a few million euros only. So, with all respect, in Germany, it is already somewhat more. Most of that money is spent on research-related programs, so science-driven. And to be honest, I think talking about imbalance on an annual basis in the Netherlands alone, about 6 billion euros are spent yearly on the energy transition. So this amount of a few million on protein transition is still a fraction. So so these are the amounts that are spent from the government on this topic. I can try and find a link with an overview that you can add to your summit presentation later, Jochem.
Okay, thank you very much. I look in the audience. There's Suzanne. Welcome.
Yeah, just to add, if you have the time for that, to what Jeroen just said, I also think that this is, of course, a very small scale initiative. The topic is so much bigger. Of course, this is only about if you like, only about agricultural projects. But the cover page of the Wirtschaftswoche magazine that you just showed in your introduction, Joachim, shows that there's a whole like a rebuilding, they call it a revolution, the journalists, of the meat industry, and that is also of the protein industry, if you like to put it a bit bigger, underway. And this is that the actual action is happening, and the governmental activities in Germany, I may say, speaking from an NGO perspective, are not on top of things there. But you see that there's something happening now due to the COVID-19 crisis and these problems that they had in the meatpacker industry in some areas of Germany. So we see that this is we've been seeing a lot of traction for the topic on plant-based proteins, and in the future also on cultivated proteins. But this will hopefully and probably gain even more momentum due to this crisis at the moment. As for the question from Jeroen, fish doesn't play a big role there yet because there's only a few products out on the market. But this is really interesting from an investment perspective, that more and more investors are going and looking especially for startups and for companies that produce plant-based fish and seafood alternatives. So this is something of the biggest trends in the market, I would say. And I know that Novish, for example, from the Netherlands, is a quite promising and fast-growing company, but also the big ones like corn and so on are already on the market. We know that big fish, some of the biggest fish companies in the world are looking into that, and they will come up with plant-based alternatives soon. So this is really exciting, and it's the next big thing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Albrecht. There's so much more to understand, but due to the limited time, we have to switch to Osnabrück. Thank you, Albrecht.
Thank you.
Welcome, Peter Link. In our webinar, you are the man of the news. You create the news, you follow the news, you make the news, and you have your own news platform, but I'm very anxious to hear about that. So I would like to give you the word and the screen for your presentation. Peter Link of the Economist.
Yes, thank you very much. I just try to load up. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, it's there. Thank you.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay, let's go to the first chart. So who is Economist? So we are the world's largest vegan global business magazine. The launch was 2 years ago, and in June we had 95,000 unique business visitors in 160 plus countries. In Germany we have 30,000 plus unique visitors. Our readers are from the industry, trade, retail, wholesale, that are organizations, NGOs, lobbyists, R&D institutions, other institutions, and as we always see, there are a lot of other journalists read us and pick up content and use it in their media. So I just want to give you some examples of the players who are already offering, selling alternative proteins in Germany. Which is just a selection. So, and I focus on the big ones. Let's start with, for example, the retail and discounts. So Edeka and their daughter Netto, they come up with a lineup with hack burgers and 1 or 2 other products, and the products are produced by the slaughter Primus and Tanya's daughter, the daughter Tillmans, and these products were recently launched. little bit earlier were Lidl with their Next Level burgers, and this is produced by a company in North Germany called SK Meat, and again a meat company or a conventional company which comes from the meat market is producing these products. So the same is for Aldi. The products are produced by the company named Ponat, and Ponat is the company who is producing since decades the meat products for Aldi, and they have gone into this business with with their burgers as well. So and burgers and hack and mince and so on. Okay. So far from the retail, so the last retail chain which is left is Rewe. They have a variety of meat from other countries, from other companies like Vegafit and like the company you mentioned already, like Meat, and then some Austrian companies and other German companies where we come to now. So of course, one big player is Garden Gourmet, Nestle. They come now with their sensational range, burgers, mince, and other products, and they just had to rename their products. They were called Incredible burgers before, but Impossible Burgers forbid them to use this word, so they had to are doing a complete relaunch at the moment. So you mentioned last like Meat, Timo Recker in your presentation, Jeroen earlier, and this is a very interesting. So it was a small startup which was founded near Osnabrück in a little town, and then they were bought by a meat company, and then by another meat company, and since a few months the majority of the company has been bought by Live Kindly, and behind Live Kindly there's a investor, Blue Horizon from Switzerland, and this company, together with Blue Horizon Ventures, they raised more than 150 million euros, and their target is to buy the majorities of companies which have already which are already established on a small basis in German supermarkets, and have shown that the consumers like their products, and now they get in with some 10 millions of euro into Like Meat, and the target is to make Like Meat the market leader in that plant-based meat market in at least in Europe. So, and yeah, okay. So then here we see the pioneer of veggie products. They launched already 2014 vegetarian range, Rügenwalder Mühle, which is a family company. They just announced their result for 2019. It's the largest or the biggest result, or the biggest results they ever had. It's around 230 million, and around 40% of these is from the veggie products, and the rest is for the meat products. So they grow very, very strong in the veggie market. They have 13 vegetarian products and 8 vegan products, and for the vegan products they actually run a TV campaign, and in the first and second German national television, plus in some other private channels. So they put a lot of money into advertising for their products, and yeah, you find them in all the retail chains, and they have a huge market share in Germany at the moment. Okay, then you have the Nomad Group, Igloo. They recently, I think a few months ago, launched frozen products. They never had such products before, so they got into the market, want to have some market share. On the other hand, you have what we already mentioned, the Vegetarische Metzger, as it's called in Germany, with Unilever. They started a huge campaign recently, an outdoor campaign in big towns, and I was in Berlin 10 days ago, and yeah, I saw these posters and displays almost everywhere in the town. So they spent a lot of money in advertising for their products. So, and then you have another kind of veteran, so AVE, which stands for Absolute Vegan Empire. This was founded, I think, 2004 or 2006, and then they had some problems because the young founder died, and then they got in some problems, and then they are now the major shareholder is Ponat. As you remember, a few charts earlier, I told it that they are the company who is delivering meat and plant-based product and producing plant-based products for Aldi, and they as well in these plant-based business now. They have the biggest or one of the two biggest vegan shops in online shops in Germany. They have a range of 200 products, and yeah, and from the 1st of August on, they will they have a relaunch, and then they their new name is Fantastic Food, and as well their shop will be renamed in a few weeks. Then you have Amidori. They do not have such a big market share, but it is interesting. So the majority was bought last year, I think, from Pfeiffer and Langen, which is a huge sugar company in Germany. And there you see that these conventional industry is getting more and more into the plant business. So the whole world wondered that a sugar company is starting in the plant-based meat sector. But you know, you see how the world is developing in terms of plant-based meat. Funny. So then you have the PHW group, which is yeah, in Germany more known as Wiesenhof. They are in all areas active, so they have an own board member for alternative proteins, and they have a lot of shares in companies, and they do the distribution. For example, they had in the beginning the exclusive distribution for Beyond Meat in Germany. They still distributing it, but not longer exclusive. They have a cooperation agreement with Just for their eggless egg products from America, and they are invested in Good Catch, which is a yeah, plant-based fish company from the US, but they are invested as well in Supermeat from Israel, and this company is producing cultivated meat, or is trying to, they produce it already, but they are now in the phase that they try to make it ready for the mass market. And there again, you see Live Kindly, which is the major shareholder in Like Meat, as I mentioned earlier, and Live Kindly. In Live Kindly, PHW has as well invested, as far as we know, several 10 millions of euro, and within the Live Kindly network, PHW has established, or together with the Live Kindly network, PHW has established or is establishing a distribution network for companies who produce plant-based meat. So that's a very interesting example. There were a meat-only company until a few years ago, and then they started with some own products, but then they changed the strategy and got invested in other companies and are doing the distribution for other companies in Germany, and they make a big shift, and they repositioned their company. They were, you say they are not longer a company for poultry specialities, and they call themselves a company which is offering protein products to consumers, and they say, okay, if the consumers want chicken or pig, we deliver that, but if you ask for insect protein or plant-based protein or cultivated protein, we are ready to offer that. We follow the market, and they, as far as they say, they are completely open for all kinds of proteins. And this is interesting because some American meat players as well repositioned themselves in a similar way as PHW did it. Okay, so then we have vegans. They started as years ago as a vegan supermarket chain, which was not successful. Then they changed their business model and became a distribution company for vegan products. And now they are, since a few years, a producer, and they do like shop in shops and big supermarkets. So you find the products in many supermarkets in Germany, they in the shelves, and different ranges. So in total they have 200 products, from dry products to refrigerated products to frozen products. And the last figure I saw is that they almost made 27 million turnover in 2019. They have strong growth ambitions. They collected a few million a few months ago, and they already announced that there will be another round where they look for investors, and they just preparing everything to start the next round.
Peter, let me shortly give some information to all the listeners. We are a little bit delayed started. I know there will be a lot of coming, so a short stop for Peter, but he will continue. But for those who have to leave this session, it will be recorded, so we will send you all the information and all and also the record. And for those who still have time, I would suggest to stay tuned and to listen to some of the new products that will be introduced by Peter. Peter, continue, please.
Oh, okay, so we spoke about fish. So vegans is as well offering fish. He recently launched a salmon alternative. And then we have a traditional company like Frosta. They call it Fish vom Feld, which they launched in spring in Bremen on the seafood exhibition. And you see that there are bigger companies getting into that fish alternative fish market as well. So that's then there are some other industry players in the organic market, like Wheaty, like Viana, Albert, Soto, Typhoon, Veginess, and some other players. And I'm in contact right now with the organic association, with an organic association in Germany with 100 companies as members, and so they just founded a kind of section within their organization which is focusing on plant-based products and plant-based alternatives. So they are a little bit behind, but now they obviously start. Okay, so industry, the cheese one. So Wilmersberger, I think it's popular. It was popular in the Netherlands a few years ago. I don't know what the marketing position is. And we have Simply V, which is a daughter of the Hochland Dairy Group, and they have, I think, a market share of 70%. So you find them in all supermarkets. In the meanwhile, then of course you have some fermentation companies like Legendary and Mush Labs. And then you have some institutions like the German Institute for Food Technology in North Germany. They are working on extrusion processes, caring for taste, texture, appearance, and so on. And they have an own production facility which you can use for testing the complete production process. I think they have 200 people or something like that on 9,000 square meters. So it's a very big institution. On the other hand, you have the Fraunhofer Institute, and they have as a reference, for example, this lupine company made with Louvre, which is pretty successful, and they as well were involved in the development of the Amidori plant-based meat products. And as a third, you have the University of Hohenheim, which is involved there. Okay, as the end, Joachim, you already mentioned Balpro, which is the Association for Alternative Proteins in Germany. And in this group, you have 40 members. They launched almost a year ago, and now they are getting more and more active. Today I received an information from them that they now have their 10-point action program on their website. So go to their website. They have it in English now. It was only in German since a few weeks ago, but from today on, they told me they have it in English. So you can go there and see what they are planning and for what they stand for. Yeah, and then you have the ingredients companies who are pretty active in the field, like Döhler, Virosol, Brenntag, GEA, and then Gelita, who has cooperations with Geltor, which is a gelatine producer without using animal ingredients, and So as a summary, so we have a quite dynamic growth for all protein products in Germany. Retail and industry have widely adopted alt protein, and they see a business there. More and more companies are getting in, and the retail is more and more open for these kind of products. They are getting more and more involved, and as already Albrecht said, the politicians pay nearly no attention to this market yet, and Germany is wasting great opportunities nowadays, and they are not at the top of things, and that could be done much more, and but I don't see too much initiatives at the moment. So we have something which I call the veggie shock. The Green Party proposed, I think 7-8 years ago, to install a veggie day per week, and at that time there was no acceptance for this topic, and so the Green Party lost a lot of in the election, and dramatically. And since my impression is that from the political parties, nobody wants to touch all this until they are forced to do it. So, and yeah. Yeah, thank you. Is there another one? Thank you for your time. And you see my email address there. So if you have any questions, just drop me a mail, and I'm happy to get in contact with you. And on the other hand, of course, I invite you to go to vegconomist.de, the German side, or the English international side, and to see the latest news every day. So we publish 5 to 10 news per day, and have a lot of interviews with the industry, with organizations, and so on. And yeah, and subscribe for our newsletter, so you get 2-3 times per week the latest news on your desk. Thank you.
Yeah, Peter, thank you very, very much. I have subscribed to your newsletter, so I'm up to date.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really, really interesting to follow your news, and also to hear about your description about the German market. Thank you very much for that. I don't see questions at this moment. So we have a good overview now of some of the players of the German market, and also very interesting to hear about the newest update of the website of Balpro, de brancheorganisatie, der Dachverband, zu diesem Thema. Das hat es so auch noch nicht gegeben. There was no organization.
Yeah, this is news. It's a year, so, and yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And of course, also your interpretation about the Veggie Day 7-8 years ago. It's an interesting theory. In those years, Renate Kunast introduced this day. At that time, I was director of the Dutch Fruit and Vegetable Agency, so we thought that is a very good move, right? To eat one day only fruit and vegetables or plant-based. But I didn't know it was such a negative impact on the whole political.
Bad idea. So
yeah. So
it was the right idea at the wrong time. So
yeah. And nowadays, perhaps it will be the good timing for a relaunch of this Veggie Day. We should think about it. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Due to the time, we are a little bit late. I'm sorry for that, but there's too much interesting information. I would like to give the screen to Floor Buitelaar, and she will show us an impression of the German retail and German stores. Last year you visited, or some month ago. So please take us to the shop in Germany. What did you see there? What can we learn from you?
Yes, thank you, Jochem. Indeed, I went to Germany end of last year, so almost half a year ago, and I will share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Mm-hmm. So I will highlight the things that are different compared to the Dutch retail, because most of the participants today are Dutch. And there is some overlap, but also some differences. And why did I go to Germany? Well, I've went to several countries in Europe last year to explore how the vegan is included in the retail. So some countries where I've been to is Israel, but also France and Spain, and Germany as well. Why did I go to Germany? Well, during 2017 and 2018, Germany has been the global #1 in vegan product launches for food and drinks. So there's a lot happening in the vegan scene in Germany, which we've heard today from the other speakers as well. So I've made a retail safari. That's the official name in retail world. how you call it. I've been to quite some retailers in Berlin and in das Ruhrgebiet, so close to Düsseldorf. And what I've seen is, first of all, that there's a lot of dairy actually. Yeah. If you look at the Dutch retailers, you see a lot of meat analogs in the spotlight, but here in Germany, you already see a lot of dairy-free options. It has to do with two things. On the one hand, that the demand is there, but also on the other hand, that lactose-free, so lactose-free products are very high in demand in the German market, more compared to the Dutch consumers. So that's why you see a lot of products in the spotlight when you come into the German stores. And what you then see, if you look at, for example, plant-based milk or other dairy-free products, is that you see a difference in the ingredients compared to Dutch products in the shelves. So you see, for example, buckwheat, but also the brand Made with Love that you just called, Peter. You see it here on the left with the purple and white branding. Is very big in Germany. And you also see products like hemp seeds, and here you see the buckwheat, for example. So you see a more focus on local ingredients compared to the Dutch market. It has to do with more awareness for local products on German consumers. Then, well, we know all the konditerijen in Germany, and you also see that in the supermarket shelf. So you see a lot of pies, cakes in supermarkets, also in the freezer. But you also see a lot of ice cream, and there you don't only see like the traditional dairy products, but you also see quite a lot of dairy-free options. So even like the mochi, the Japanese desserts are veganized, but you see the Alpro brands, and you have several other brands as well. But they already have a private label ice cream as well, which is really, really compared to the Ben & Jerry options that we, for example, have in the Netherlands, which are sold at a premium, for example, for 5 or 6 euros. And here you see the private label brand for only 2 euros. So I definitely see chances for, I definitely see Dutch opportunities there. But I see that like the German market is leading the way in more sweetener products in retail. Then what we also see is a lot of Oatly. That's not only because it's been sold a lot, but also to get some awareness in store, of course. And because this was in the Zuheide store, which is a massive retail store in the center of Düsseldorf. I've also been to Markthal in Krefeld, for example, which is really big as well. And you see that they have separated vegan and vegetarian aisles there, or even like departments. So this area is a whole vegan and organic department in the store, where they do have a lot of space to get the awareness from customers, for example, for Oatly, but also for other product categories. What also came to my attention in the German retailing is that they have better signing compared to the Dutch retailers. So we all know that Albert Heijn, for example, launched the vegan shelf cards this year to get some awareness of the consumers to vegan products. But what we see at German retailing here, for example, you see a small V, which indicates that this beer is even vegan. And you see that in this store, which is dense, a more organic store, throughout the whole store. So in every category, you can see which product is vegan. But also at Real, for example, a big retailer, you see the vegan and vegetarian signing throughout the whole store, even in cosmetics, so in personal care, where the vegan trend in the Netherlands haven't came into yet. Then Jeroen already mentioned it, that Bold Foods, or KWOW, because they changed their name to KWOW this year, is also in the German stores. So they are insect-based, but they also launched plant-based products in store. And you can find them in the freezer, which I found here in Kaufland. It's always nice if we spot some of our members in store. And another thing that I saw is that there are various ready-to-heat and eat meals in the German stores. And I think that will become a bigger category this year and next year in the Netherlands as well. But I found several options in German stores. Both in the freezer, which you see here, but also in the fresh category. and even salads, but also just full meals that you can find. So as being a vegetarian or a vegan, or even just looking for a healthy alternative, it's way easier to get something that's easily prepared in German retail stores. Another thing that I found very interesting is that I often hear that Germans are more conservative towards soy or GMO products, because they see soy and GMO more often as one thing. But still, you find a lot of tofu options in the stores, and also tempeh, even way more than in the Dutch market, where you usually find two or three products. But here you see just a whole range of only tofu options. And then one brand is really big, that's Typhoon, which was already mentioned by Peter as well. So yeah, that wasn't really in line with the expectations I had before I went to the German retail stores. And then finally, it was already mentioned, Vegans. If you're talking about vegan in retail, you have to go to Vegans, which is only in Berlin yet, I believe. Or they were in prior cities as well, but they now only have the Berlin stores left. And this is just a whole vegan supermarket. So everything you can find here is vegan. And you see a lot of like packaged goods, but they also have a whole fresh range. And there you see mostly that they are unique in the dairy alternatives. The picture isn't that great, but you see a lot of cheese options and spreads. And we also saw in the Provage results that consumers are really looking for more dairy alternatives, in particular for cheese options, cheese alternatives. So that's why Vegans offers such a huge range as well, because you cannot really find good alternatives in the regular retailers yet. So definitely an opportunity for both German and Dutch retailers to add those to the assortment. And what was also mentioned is vegan fish. There are not many opportunities or products that you can buy so far, but I did find some vegan shrimps at the Vegan store. And this picture is already taken a year ago, so I assume that they've added a bit more vegan fish products to the range, but that definitely gives the example that there is market for vegan fish as well. So I would say that more vegan fish products should be added to both German and Dutch retailers in future. And if you have any questions on what I just explained, or you want to know more about retailing in Europe, just let me know, and you can send me an email to this email address. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Floor. I saw one question right now from Suzanne, and she asked whether Vegans, it's a brand, concept store, do they also sell other brands?
Yeah, they do sell other brands as well. So they do have their own range, and they have their branding as a store, and their branding under their products that they sell at other retailers as well. But in their own store, they sell a lot of other brands too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason why Vegans, the supermarket, decreased in its stores is because all the other conventional supermarkets in Germany took over the assortment of vegan. So we also did a retail tour in Germany, and we saw a lot of meters of vegan products. But very interesting to hear, and also the difference in taste. The German like sweets and also other dairy products. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't see other questions. Yeah, we could continue like this. I think we had a very good overview on the German market, and it's only this at the start. We will see how also the effect of Corona perhaps boost also these plant-based thinking. I can only hope so, and we have to look forward to cooperation and chances on the German market and on the Dutch market. I want to thank you all for attending, and also we will send you an email with this recording and the presentations, and to all my speakers. I will have a very specific thank you. If we would have organized this in real time or on a stage, I would have given you, of course, I don't know if I will have to send in
vegan flowers,
a plant-based bottle with some alcohol in, but well, it has to stay here. But
yeah.
let me be assured, I will do the tasting for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah?
Thank you.
And I will tell you how good it was.
Yeah, okay, good.
So thank you very much, everybody, and see you next time, perhaps on the 3rd of September, and hopefully also real and live on real stages. That's where we are on our best. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you.
Dankjewel.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.